Hi, I'm going to show you really quickly how to transfer objects from one scene to another scene the correct way without using don't destroy unload because it's kind of obsolete actually. In the API it does say to use additive scene loading, and I will show you why and why it's useful. And this is the first video I've ever made ever, so I'm sorry if the sound isn't good or whatever. Yeah, okay. So what you do is you create a scene, and that scene is going to exist forever, basically. Obviously, you don't have any lighting information or anything like that in there, but you can have objects. So right here, I have a player, camera, a directional light that's not really necessary. It's just if I delete it, that's what happens. So I'm just going to keep it, whatever. And then any kind of manager, square manager, whatever. And I'm just calling that scene never unload. And then I have scene 1, that's just a plane. And then I have scene 2, that's just another plane, okay? And then just make sure in the build settings, you'll have them all. And the cool thing is the scene number actually matches with the integer in the build array or whatever. So never unload is 0, and then scene 1, scene 2, 1, 2, blah, blah. Really easy, okay? And then we have an AnyManager script. In the AnyManager script, I have a function that occurs right as the game starts on awake. That's really important, and that's obviously to load the first scene because there's nothing loaded. So you just have to load whatever your first scene is. In order to use the new scene management, you just go to using Unity Engine scene management up there, and then scene manager, load scene async. Use async, that will load a scene, and then you can choose when to unload the next scene. That's the whole point of this, is you choose when to unload. So you just never unload this scene, and it stays forever. And that is actually way more optimized, but first let me show you why. And then I'm just using a bool, game start, so this only occurs once. I don't know if awake functions happen when other scenes are loaded or unloaded, so I'm just using a bool to make sure this only happens once ever. So I'm setting it to true. And then another important thing is this is a static class, script, whatever, and the way to do that is just go make a public static AnyManager variable. You can name it whatever. You can name it a copy of this AnyManager script, and I just named it AnyManager with a lowercase a. And then in the wake function, I'm just setting AnyManager to this, so that this script is that variable. So that's just how you make a static script. And then this can be accessed from any other script anywhere. So that's the only important thing we need to know right now. So when the game starts, it just loads additively the next scene. You see, the strength of this is that it didn't unload anything. It just loaded the next scene. So it loaded the next quad with everything in it, and it keeps this scene. You can probably already see how this is going to work. You just don't unload the first scene, ever. Okay? So let's just take a look at the first scene. The first scene is just a plane, and it has a trigger. When the player enters the trigger, it's going to, do an onTrigger enter function. And then right here I just have a script. You select what scene, or I just put in whatever scene is going to load next. That's going to be scene 2. Let's take a look at that script. It's called the load script. Very simple. It has an onTrigger enter function that I'm just protecting with a bool just to make sure it only happens once. Obviously you don't want to load additive scenes multiple times. Same thing, needs the Unity scene management. Really easy, one line of code, same thing we did previously. Scene manager, load scene async, select whatever scene, that's scene 2, right? And then additive. Just make sure it's additive. So literally, I don't know if it's literally, but the same thing is going to happen when we go into that trigger. It's going to load another scene. Shazam. So now you'll see, it just added that other scene. This is so awesome. I'm really excited that they changed how this works. So scene 1 and scene 2, so now you have both those scenes loaded, right? And you'll see nothing happened to the player. The player just went, well, he hasn't gone to the next scene yet, but now let's see what happens in the next scene. So scene 2, right? We have to unload the previous scene. So basically the same thing, it's just a trigger. It has an unload script. This time we're putting in the previous scene number, so it's scene 1, and the unload script is basically the same. It has an onTrigger enter function with a bool with the scene, right? I'm setting the bool to true first, just so if this is unloaded, we make sure, it doesn't really matter, it's going to be unloaded, it's not going to run again, but just to be safe. And then there is one caveat. You can't just go to Scene Manager and click Unload Scene. This is my own Unload Scene function. You can't just go to Scene Manager and do it. You'll see we're not using Scene Manager because it'll unload the scene of this script, and it causes, I'm not sure exactly what happens, but it freezes Unity. So you have to wait a frame before you unload the scene previously. If someone knows why that is, let me know. So that we're just accessing our AnyManager script that we made static, remember? So we can access it anywhere, and this is how you access it. You do the AnyManager script, you find the AnyManager variable, that's the lowercase a, or whatever it is that you named it, and then it's just running a function that I created called unload scene, and it's sending the scene variable to that function, and that's this function right here, unload scene. It's just whatever you create. And then I'm kind of creating an extra step here where I'm just using a function to start an IEnumerator within the script because I think it's simpler to explain. But an IEnumerator, I'm just starting a coroutine. Sorry, I don't know why I'm calling it that. You just start a coroutine called unload, send the scene to it, and then before you unload the scene, it'll freeze if you just do that, or if I just put Scene Manager up here and just did that only. That's why I'm doing the coroutine, because I'm waiting a frame by saying yield return null, so everything finishes, and then I'm unloading the scene, and then it won't freeze. Like I said, I'm not quite sure why that happens, but that's how you fix it. So then simply you just unload scene and you select what scene. Really simple, one line of code, so quick, painless. Alright, so yeah, just let's load the very first scene. It's going to go into the trigger, it's going to additively load scene 2, and then it's going to unload scene 1. And you'll see there's no don't destroy, everything still exists within that kind of overhead scene right here. And the cool thing is that there's no information that's being passed from scene to scene. It's not even within the scene, right? So there's a lot of things you don't have to do. You don't have to go through all the objects by type or tag or whatever and see if there's any duplicates or anything. There'll never be any duplicates ever. You don't even have to make the AnyManager script static. You can just, get the component of it and save it as a variable within the script, whatever. But yeah, that's how you do it. It's a lot easier. Another cool thing is, since this scene isn't a don't destroy whatever that's being passed from one scene to another, you can instantiate objects within this scene rather than instantiating them within scene 1 or scene 2. Like you can have an enemy that's in scene 2 and you open a door and you're still in scene 1 and the enemy shoots a fireball at you or something, and it goes from one scene to the other scene. You just instantiate that fireball within the never unload scene, and it'll just traverse from one scene to another without any hitches or anything that needs to happen. Okay, so yeah, that's how you do it. It's actually, I think, a lot easier. It's really like 2 or 3 lines of code that are occurring, and there's no duplicates, no arrays, nothing. Simple, easy, awesome. Alright, cool. So yeah, my first video. Sorry about sound, or if I sound nervous. I am nervous. So yeah, see ya, bye.